Hey guys, welcome to the show. Nice to see you back here. I have another great guest today, Ryan Plaster, my friend Ryan. I actually met Ryan through Jake Roberts' podcast. You guys probably remember I was on Jake's show about a month and a half or 2 months ago, something like that. And Ryan was one of the following guests. I think it was maybe about 2 weeks after me, right, Ryan? Something like that.
Yeah.
And so so Ryan had contacted Jake about a site that he has in Arkansas that is also related to the 1611 King James Bible. If you guys haven't seen Jake Roberts' work, I definitely recommend going on to his Ghost of Bacon podcast, checking that out. So in any case, I watched the show. I was really excited about the show, Ryan, that you did with Jake, and I had asked Jake. I said, "What is this about this cave in Arkansas? I can't wait to hear more about this." So of course, I watched the show. And since then, we've been talking about the relevance to the Bible and everything, and me and Ryan have become friends. So I want to go right into the show here. I'll just read an introduction for Ryan really quick, guys, so you kind of know where he's coming from. Ryan's an electrician. He's also a fabricator. He studied the Bible for about 13 years, and very closely, looking for the relevance and also in search of ciphers, and we'll get into that in a minute here. And so a few of the things that Ryan's been looking for is evidence for what would be the true names or correct names of different figures in the Bible. And this is a really important thing because, as we go through history, you have groups of people who want to maintain interest and power, changing names, changing the narrative. And that's a serious problem because it's actually like that telephone game that kids play, is that by the time it gets to the end of the line, after you go through 20 kids, it's a different word and it's a different meaning. And that's a serious problem if you want accuracy and you want to understand history, especially if you want to understand spirituality. And so we're going to be going into evidence for what Ryan has as the correct names for figures in the Bible. We'll go through maybe 5 or 6 different names. And then we're going to talk about Francis Bacon as well. And Francis Bacon, of course, the father of the scientific method. Some people believe that he was is the true author of the Shakespeare works, which Ryan believes and Jake believes. And I generally also believe that. And so that'll be an interesting topic. And then we're going to go into the 1611 King James Bible as kind of what kicks off the cipher message. And we'll get into that kind of as we move along. And that's what opened up the site in Arkansas for Ryan, which we'll be talking about a little bit as well. There's a lot to talk about. But Ryan, if you want to just, if you don't mind starting, just telling people kind of how you got on this path, tell people about your spiritual journey and how you've gotten to this point.
Yeah. So thank you. My name's Ryan, and I'm about to be 43. And when I was 30, a voice came to me and spoke to me, and it changed my life. Of course, if that really happens to a person, that's going to change your life. And so I knew in that moment that I had a creator. And so I began to search for him. And of course, here in America, you're told to go into the church. And so that's exactly where I went. And I did study, and all different religions, denominations, and ultimately find a place. And I stayed there for several years. And but I'm studying rigorously, and I'm after about 4 or 5 years in, I'm really beginning to ask questions because things are not lining up. I don't follow something just to follow it. I need the evidence to show me. Otherwise, you're just living in a delusion. And we only have this one opportunity, and so I don't want to waste it on things that aren't real. If it is real, I'll put the work in. And so once the Father showed me that he was real, which I should have seen him, just out here and behind me, he's everywhere. And I can see that today, but I couldn't then. And so I go on this journey, and it ends up taking me away from the church because they do not have the truth. As you said, things have been covered up through translation in different ways. And that's done on for a purpose. That was done on purpose. And it's our job to find the truth. It's there to be found. In the beginning was the Word. And so we must find that Word, and then we must shine it forth to other people. And that is what we're doing. And so this is what the Father refers to as the mystery of Elohim. You can read about this in Revelation chapter 10. And the mystery of Elohim, of course, is where is the Ark of the Covenant? It's the Father's throne, according to the scriptures. He dwells between the cherubims. And so this is far more than just a relic or just a trinket, a treasure. This is we're talking if we do have a creator, and he did create a covenant with man, and he's placed this covenant in this box. This is his covenant with us, which means he's there. It's far different than any other treasure you would ever find. And if you ever wanted to unlock a mystery, you need the when, what, where, why, right? How. On the Bacon podcast, we did the first four. Tonight, we want to do the why. Why did Francis Bacon do this? We know he did it. We know where he did it. We know when he did it. We know what he did. But why did he do it? And we're going to see that he did it because he truly believed in the Father. The Father was with him. The Father spoke to him. He was a true prophet. And he tells us that in his writings and within the scriptures. And he's letting us know that he was a prophet and that he did a work for the Father. And it's our job to finish that work. He laid it out, and we have to walk in it to make the scriptures come to pass and bring on the Messianic age and in wickedness and usher in the age of righteousness.
Now, Ryan, he was also, of course, a scientist, and he was a statesman, I believe, politician. He was a genius by all accounts. And so,
Sure.
He had so many abilities to bring forth things, especially things of, I would say, spiritual significance. And it'll be interesting to hear what you have to say about. Well, actually, I'll ask you right now in terms of nature. How does Francis Bacon and nature? How do they come together?
How did they come together?
Yeah, of course, he was a scientist, and he believed in studying the natural world to find answers.
Yeah.
And that it's a part of creation, of course, very important part of creation.
Yeah, he tells us that he's a perfect imitator of nature.
Yeah.
So he sees what I see. He sees the Father in everything. And they wrote a book. We're going to dive into that a little bit tonight. It's called it's called the Confessio. It's a confession. That's what that means. The Rosicrucians wrote a book in 1615. It's published by an uncertain author, and it's a confession of what they did. And we should listen to that. If somebody's saying that they're leaving a confession, then I want to read that. I want to know, what are you confessing to me? And what they're confessing is that the Father was with them, and they refer to him as nature many times in this book. They call the Bible the book of nature. And it's because, of course, the Father, okay. Nature is alive, and you can't be alive without a creator. Everything was created. In the beginning was the Word. And so everything was spoken out, and everything was created through this creator. And therefore, all of nature is a part of him. He's in it proportionably. You see him proportionably, and you have to put it all together. And that's the faith. It's like the evidence. Like, you don't literally see him like in the way that you would want to, but you can't deny that you don't see him.
Oh, definitely. And nature, for me was really the first thing that I looked at. And you just think to yourself, how can this not be a divine creation? Do you see all the beautiful plants and animals and the streams everywhere and the mountaintops with snow on them? I mean, it's magnificent. That's not a random thing. I'm at odds with a lot of scientists saying, oh yeah, just a bunch of rocks crashed together and formulated a disk, and that became the Earth. And then there were things that started, amino acids and proteins started to form, and water. And I'm like, no, man, come on, guys. Look at what's in front of you. That does not randomly happen. I don't care how many years you give that. That's in a divine intelligence,
Yeah, the way in which things were created isn't so much, how could you really go back and be, unless you were there, or unless he showed it to you somehow. But what we can look at is how it operates. And when you begin to look at how the world operates, just for it to even be here, the distance between the sun, the magnetic field, there's many factors that play just for life to even exist. There are no less than 50 things that have to happen in unison, in perfect order, in order for life to exist. That is your sign of a creator, that the chance just doesn't do that.
I agree 100%. Yeah. All right, so I just want to lay this out really quickly, Ryan. So a lot of people believe that Francis Bacon is not only the father of the scientific method. A lot of people also are coming to believe he was the author of the Shakespearean works, either alone or with a couple other people. And on top of that, he's said to be the founder of the Rosicrucians, and the founder of the Freemasons, and the author or the editor, please correct me if I'm incorrect, of the 1611 King James Bible.
Yes, he was definitely the editor of the book. Of course, you had other translators at the beginning. They were going through the books, and then those books were brought down. I believe it ultimately comes down to 6, and then the 7th is the editor. And
Okay.
they were paired into groups of 2, and so each pair got so many books, and then when they were all done, it was brought to King James, and then King James handed it off to Francis Bacon, and Bacon does the editing of the book, and then ultimately it's presented. And so there's no doubt there's no record of it, but we can prove it, and how it's proven is through ciphers. And ciphers, I understand, like when you hear that, you're just like, what? But all you have to do is go back into history. This was a language. This was something that was done everywhere in the world. And so if you want to unlock a mystery in their time period, you need to understand the constructs in which they're using, and they're very much using ciphers. So we need to understand that. Now, fortunately for us, the ones that Bacon leaves, they're done with this mind of curiosity. He says it in the translator to the readers. They left you a letter in your Bible which has been removed, but the actual translators of the book left you a letter in the 1611, and they're giving you all sorts of information. And within that book, within that, there's so much that Bacon is conveying to you in a secret way that it can't possibly not be anything other than he edited that book.
So it's, of course, a way to encode information that you potentially don't want certain people to see, but you want to make it accessible to the population for the future, at least in this case, for the future. And so, of course, what you do is you publish it in a book that you know is going to stand the test of time. And it has been changed, though. I think you told me, Ryan, what the first couple editions featured most of the intact information from the 1611. And then after that, things started to be changed a lot. And then, of course, as it goes through history, it branches off into how many different versions of the Bible. But I find it interesting because, when I first met Jake Roberts, I'm not a cipher person. I've actually never spent time with ciphers. My training is mostly in biology, both Western and Eastern traditions of biology, and then, of course, astrology and spiritual traditions of the world. And so when it comes to ciphers, I think it's really cool, man. I mean, I love to see them. It's not my specialty, but I think it's brilliant because we need people to be doing that. And after what you guys haven't seen any of for instance, it's very highly publicized, but the Da Vinci Code, there's lots of ciphers. It's kind of, would you agree, Ryan? It's like a cipher style movie. It's showing hidden messages encrypted, right? And
they actually know. They actually know this. They've been putting it in our face for a long time. Like you said, the Da Vinci Code that's that concept of ciphers, right. National treasure, done the same way.
I was just going to bring that up, man. Yeah.
Riddles and ciphers, and then they actually code things in these movies. And so, like when you're watching the National Treasure, and there's a scene where on the newspaper at the bottom, there's a writing, and it says to find the treasure pass, and you have the word Scion. That's in the movie. They understand. Okay. It's hidden. Now, they're not telling anybody else, but they know this is not going to be a surprise to certain people in the world. They didn't know where it was, but they very much understood what was going on and what Bacon had done.
Yeah, brilliant.
And ciphering, we do it today. It's done for us. So like a DM, if you DM somebody that, that's a message that you're sending to them in which only you and that person can see. Now, why is that? Well, it's because there's a code behind it. And if you don't have that code, those ones and zeros, then you can't see that message. That is a form of ciphering.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with that. And actually, even I think a lot of arguments could be made for that language itself as a cipher to represent ideas. You're you're using this word to code a meaning or to code an event or something like that, or even like a pictorial a depiction back in the beginning when the letter, you know, represented an actual it was like a picture, an image, and it was very close to what it actually meant. Whereas now we're using letters to represent images and stuff like that, which is like a couple steps off from, you know, maybe getting direct at it. But in any case, okay, so you heard a voice, Ryan, back in, well, that was what, about 13 years ago?
Yeah, I was 30 years old. Yep.
Okay, and then if you could continue and just tell us where that led you in terms of where you're at right now.
So ultimately, I go away from I go independent, and I'm at work one day, and that voice came back to me. It was 7 years later, and it put a name. It told me to find his name, and you know, of course, I'm confused. I thought I had his name. And so I go on this search. It took a couple of weeks because they have many names. There's many names flowing out there. When you discover that we have a problem with translation, and then there's many other names that they're gonna have in line to try to keep you in that deception. And so it took a little bit, but it is possible to find your creator's name. He did give it to us, and it was written down. And therefore, why is that important? You would understand this because basically when you break everything down, it comes down to frequencies. That is really what the universe, the you can call it the language of the universe. It would definitely be, if there was a language, it would be frequency. And when I say like Dave, that is a specific frequency coming out. When I say, if I were to say, whatever name, or Yahushua, that is a specific frequency. There's power behind it. We don't fully understand it, but the Hebrew language is a powerful language. It actually holds force because it's a pure language. It came from the heavens. It started with the Father, of course, and worked its way down to Adam. Him and Adam walked in the garden together. They would have had this communication. And then when the fall happens and they begin to procreate and have sons, that language is passed down to them. And we speak that same language all the way until the Tower of Babel. And so the Hebrew language is a very powerful language, and it unlocks it unlocks everything. We're just scratching the surface to it.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure you're aware of the cymatics experiments that have been done with the Hebrew characters and how the actual, I mean, it's amazing, man. The actual frequency creates that form of that letter.
Yeah,
it's literally
there's frequencies. Like I said, I don't understand a whole lot about it, but I do know that frequencies are very important. And so proclaiming specific names is very important. So it's kind of no different than when you're making a telephone call. You got to dial a specific number. If you just go dialing any number, you're going to get somebody that you don't want. You have to have that specific number. If there is a creator and he actually gave man a specific name, if you are proclaiming that specific name, that frequency, well, you're going to be able to communicate with him. You're dialing the direct number.
Definitely, I agree 100%. Of course, one of the things you said to me was, if someone said, referencing me and turned towards me and talking, and they said, hey Jim, you did a great job at the store the other day, or in terms of you really did a great job stocking and everything looks great. I'd be like, what are you talking to, man? That's not my name. And so then it's actually it's not accurate communication, and that's a problem, especially when you're talking about spirituality. It's like you want to make sure you get it correct.
Absolutely. Clearly there's evil all around us, and clearly evil wants to basically stamp out the light. And so how do you do that? Well, if you believe in the scriptures, which we believe we have a creator, and those scriptures are real, they are true. How do you do that? How do you erase him? Well, it would be through his name. You get rid of the name, and you get the people to believe on different names, and then that glory does not go to the creator. So just like you said, if Dave does a great work and I see it and I'm like, wow, man, look, that's just amazing. And then I run over and I tell a bunch of people and I say, man, look what Scott did. Is Dave getting the glory? No, it's been robbed from him. It's been stolen from him.
Yeah, correct. So we need to get the proper names. So I'm thinking if we can go through maybe 5 or 6 of the most important names in the Bible, Ryan, if you could tell us how they've been changed and kind of the lineage of that, how that happened, basically. I'd like to start with the name of Jesus, if we could, and talk to us about that.
Okay.
What happened with that name?
Yeah, so that's what we have today. But right in your 1611 Bible, that name's not there. What you're going to get is the name Jesus, and that's the Latin name. And so we know for sure, just a little over 400 years ago, the name Jesus did not exist. It did not exist in any language because the letter J does not exist in any language. It's a Roman numeral. And so we know that that's a name that has only come along a few hundred years. Now, before it was Jesus, it was in the Greek, and it was Iesus. You can see this on the Pope's collar, IHS, Iesus Christos. Constantine, who in 325, he's the one who creates Christianity. It's the beginning of the church and state coming together, and Christianity being the law of the land. And therefore, he creates what we know as, it's the very beginnings of what we know as Christianity. And so when this is created, what name do they have? What name are they starting with? They're starting with the name Yeshua, Yeshua. But that was not the prophesied name. The prophesied name was Yahushua. And it's right there in the scriptures. The name is actually in the English language one time in your Bible. And so if we have that name in our Bible, in our language, then there's no reason to have any other name. But they went ahead and took it from the Hebrew into the Greek anyway. But before they did that, they changed the name. They basically, when they added the vowel points, when they added the Aramaic language into the Hebrew language, that changed the sound values. And therefore it went from Yahushua to Yeshua. And once they had Yeshua, then they said, okay, we want to take this name and we want to take it over into the Greek, but we don't have those sound values. And so we do what's called transliteration. There's translation and then transliteration. And so they transliterated the name Yeshua and they got the name Iesus. And then of course it went to Isus, which then eventually they give you Jesus. Now, who holds the authority to do that? I understand we have the ability here on earth, as we can do anything we want, but does it actually change it? No, it doesn't. Nobody holds that authority. That's a heavenly name given from above down to earth. We should not be touching it at all. We should be proclaiming it because it was given to us. And so if you just look at the name Yeshua, the very origins of where the name Jesus comes from, Yeshu is an acronym, it has an acronym, and it means may his name in memory be blotted out. So the very origin name that we're getting the name Jesus from, the very meaning of it is may his name in memory be blotted out. There's a purpose as to, you see what I'm saying? There's a reason why that was done. And the reason why that was done is to take the glory away from him. If Yahushua is his prophesied name, what would that be in the English language? Well, they translate that as Yeshua in English, which then for some reason they change with a J and you get the name Joshua. So if we really wanted to go with translation, then we should be proclaiming the name Joshua, not Jesus. Jesus is a transliterated name. It's a man-made name. It was created. Man created it. Joshua is translated. We didn't create that. That's how you translate from one language to another. And so why are we not using Joshua? You begin to see the problem with what we have.
Yeah, that's very good, Ryan. And I have a few points from my end too, of course. And me and Ryan have talked, and I've shared this with Ryan a few times. But the IHS idea is also a lot of these are references to the Egyptian pantheon as well. And one of the things we have to remember is that the ancient world was, in terms of distances apart from each other, it wasn't that massive. When you're talking about Egypt to ancient Jerusalem, to ancient Mesopotamia, to ancient Greece, it's a fairly small area. It's all right in that pocket right there. So the ideas get passed around a lot, and of course things change. But for me, IHS is also Isis, Horus, Set, which is again from the Egyptian pantheon. And then, of course, just the word Jesus by itself I believe, comes from Isis as well. And then all you do, like Ryan said, is you add the J on the front of that. The other thing is that, of course, from an astrological perspective, you have the ruler of Pisces. Now, Jesus, the figure that people call Jesus, was associated with the fish, and he was born around the year 0, and that was generally the beginning of the age of Pisces in astrology. And so the reference to that is there's a reference to the ruler of Pisces, who is called Jupiter, and he's also called Zeus. One is the Roman, one is the Greek. Well, what happens when you put those two together? You end up with Jesus, Jupiter, Zeus. Yep. And so that's another reference point for that.
And they let you know this in all kinds of different ways. December 25th. They say that that's your Savior's birthday. They say that when we know it's not literally his birthday, but we celebrate it on that day. Okay, why are you celebrating it on that day? And of course, if you just do a little history, you'll see that every single false deity ever worshipped as their birthday was on December 25th. Every single one of them. And that's because they all derive from that same source. Even Jesus. That's why he's on that day. That's why they worship on that day. They were sun worshipers, and they're lying to you. And in the book of Revelation, it's referred to as Mystery Babylon, the woman sitting on the beast. We know this as the Catholic Church. And she's sitting on the beast, and she's holding names of blasphemy. What names does the Catholic Church hold? Of course, we're going through them. Jesus, Lord, God, all these are blasphemy names. And she's holding them. And she's got this cup in her hand. There's no denying that we have a serious, when you can open up the book of Revelation and we're living in that time period and you have a church holding blasphemy names, then we need to take a very close look at all names that are coming to us.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And to your point too, Ryan, again, it's not a coincidence that the word sun, S-O-N, is this essentially sounds the same, identical as the word S-U-N, the sun in the sky. And what happened was that, this is from an astrological, even an astronomical perspective, is that the winter solstice on December 21st is the death of the sun. That's when the sun is buried in the tomb. It's the shortest day of the year. Well, then what happens is the sun doesn't move. When I say doesn't move, I'm saying it doesn't increase in light. It stays about the same exact amount of light for about 3.5 days. Usually I say 3 1/3 days, which is 33, 3.33, which has so much significance to the whole solar system. And then on the 25th, imagine that. That's when you start to increase light. So that's called the birth of the sun in the sky. Yeah. That's what we're talking about with that one.
That's exactly why they do it. And it's actually told to you right there in Jeremiah chapter 10. Do not learn the ways of the heathen. For the customs or the traditions are vain. They look up into the stars and they're dismayed. He says they take a tree and they cut it out of the forest. And they deck it with silver and gold. What's he talking about? It's been going on for thousands of years. Before it was called Christmas, it was Saturnalia. Before it was that, it was something else. It's been passed down going all the way from the very beginning, which is Babylon. And like I was saying with the Babylon, with the cup in her hand, what is she referred to? She's referred to as Mystery Babylon. But a mystery is something that you can't answer. We know there is an answer, but we don't know it. It's a complete mystery to us. But when you look that word up, it's actually the word secret. And that makes it totally different because a secret is something that we know. We're just not being told. And that's exactly what we have here. It's secret Babylon. They know it's Babylon. They know it's Babylon sun worship. You just look at you got to go no further than like your award shows that they do. I saw one not too long ago, and they had the Tower of Babel in the background, and they were mocking, saying that they were the sons of Babel. That's on live television while they're giving each other awards. They know full well what they're doing, and they're passing it, filtering it down to us, everyday people. We're so consumed with our lives, so consumed with everyday things that for most people, they don't feel they have time to dive into what we're talking about here. The world things are more important, but that's the deception. It's not. This is the most important thing. What we're doing now and the things that we're talking about are the things that will give you another life, eternal life.
And then also the Statue of Liberty too, right? That's a reference to Babylon.
Absolutely. It goes right back to Babylon, Semiramis. You can see this. This is actually carved on stones going over in the east for thousands of years, and they have the exact same image. The woman with the rays coming off of her head, the whole thing standing in the exact same position. No different than the Catholic Church, what they call the St. Peter's Cathedral. Before that, I believe it was a temple for Mithra, and those statues were the same. They just changed
Yeah.
the names. Instead of it being Mithra holding baby whatever, they said it was Mary holding Jesus. You can't. There's so much pollution in that. The father has nothing to do with that. And we're at the time now where information is at the tip of your finger. It can't be hidden like it was for a long time. And also, we also, like with the ciphering, why are they doing ciphers? Well, because they didn't have freedoms like we do today. We got the luxury of being able to speak and having the freedom of press and having the freedom of religion, and they didn't have those things at all. That just was not around, and so you had to do things in secret.
Yeah, a lot of people say that the Shakespearean plays were done that way as well, to allow the common people to see the mystical teachings or the spiritual teachings in a way that could not be detected by maybe the authorities. I think that's a very
Yeah,
interesting idea.
the Shakespeare plays are they're much like the way in which the Bible's written, and they perform several functions. And he was a brilliant man. There's just no doubt about it. And when I know for sure one primary reason why he created the Shakespeare plays was because if you're going to create a book and you've just revised this language with these plays that you've written, the common man could not learn how to read. And so how do you convey a message to somebody when most people can't read? You do it through plays.
Very good point.
And
Yeah,
and so basically through the Shakespeare plays, you're allowed to you are able to actually teach people a new language, a revised language, because they're not going to be able to do it off reading. So it's going to have to be taught to them in a different way other than literature. And how he decided to do that was through plays, and that is just brilliant. Not to mention it unlocks a map and all the other things it did. When you really start to look at that writing, that's why they're the greatest literary works in the English language.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And even when I was in high school, I forget about this, but when I was reading through, I read Romeo and Juliet, I read Midsummer Night's Dream. This was all in high school. I read Hamlet. I think it was those three that I read. And as I'm reading through it, I'm like, there's something else going on here. And I was, I was like 17 or 18, Ryan. I had no idea what I was even looking for. I didn't even know what I was picking up on. But I felt like there was hidden meaning at a level that no one had been paying attention to. And the what are the terms now? I can't even remember. But anyway, when you talk about poetry and how things fit together, I'm thinking like amberature or something like that. It's a word similar to this. Is talking about how the lines have a certain cadence to them, if you will. A certain rhythm to them. And so one line to the next, it flows really, really well. And it just feels like it's a completely sealed package. It's been perfectly stated. The correct words have been used and all of this stuff. And I was thinking to myself as a young kid, I'm like, how could someone even do that? This is like not like a human thing. This is like somehow divinely inspired. I've seen no other literature that makes me feel the same way that Shakespeare does.
Yes, when you flip over the back of that Shakespeare book, it even tells you that book and the 1611 King James Bible, there's like a connection with the two. Well, now we can understand why that is.
And now, of course, would be the first folio, right, Ryan?
Yeah, the first folio and the 1611.
When was the first folio printed?
1623.
All right, so fairly close, within about 12 years. It's interesting, the number 12 of the 1611 Bible. Okay. All right, before we get into some of the Shakespeare connections, Ryan, in the Bible, well, the 1611 Bible specifically, I want to go over a few more of the names because I find this absolutely fascinating, and I think it's something people need to hear, and I'd like for people to hear some of the other names. So I wanted to go. We talked about the proper name for Jesus is Yahushua. I want to go over the name of the Father now, if we can. proper name of the Father, and then how that's been changed.
Yeah. So of course, he was referred to as Elohim Almighty up and until the Exodus, when he speaks to Moses, and he gives Moses a name, and that name that's given, it's 4 tetragrammaton letters, and it's that we know it to be the name Yahuwah. Now they tell you, when you look in the Bible, they give you the name Jehovah. And that, of course, is because, once again, the vowel points were added into the scriptures. And when you add in the vowel points, it changes the sound value. Now, Jewish people don't even proclaim this name. According to them, it's too sacred to utter. It's disrespectful. But the Father tells us to call on this name, to trust on this name, and to call on this name. Of course, with my dad, I don't call my dad by his name because he told me what to call him. And so I call him what he tells me to call him. Well, here I am with the Father, and the Father's telling me to call him this. And so I'm going to trust in him, and I'm going to call on what he tells me to call on. And these 4 tetragrammaton letters, they tell us that it's the name Jehovah, but it actually is the name Yahuwah. And you can actually see this with other words. So like the name Judah. The name Judah in Hebrew is pronounced Yahuda, Yahuda. It's the exact same letters of the Father's name in the Hebrew language, with one extra letter, the letter Dalaf, and it makes the D sound. That's where you're getting that D sound. So if you just dropped off the Dalaf, now you have the exact same letters as the Father, and it would be, instead of Yehuda, it would be Yahuwah. And that's how we know. Francis Bacon also codes this in the 1611. He puts it in the scriptures a few times, the name Yahuwah, because he knew it. If you had the Ark of the Covenant, you would know the Father's true name. Now, he can't put that in the Bible because he didn't have freedom. It had to be under the constructs of the papacy, under Rome. And so he very much, when they're creating this Bible, it very much has to be done in a specific way. But he felt it relevant enough to hide that name in there several times. And if you're looking closely, you'll find it once in it would be Genesis chapter 22 verse 14. If you have a 1611 Bible and you were to go to Genesis 22:14, you will see the name Yahuwah there. Bacon put it there, and he wants you to know that name because that name is very important. Just like the Son's name, they want to erase the name. The enemy wants you to worship him. The enemy doesn't care what you call him. You can call the enemy whatever you want, just as long as you're not calling on your Creator's name. That he does not want. And so he's done everything he can to try to cover it up. And they've done this with the word Lord. They put Lord, they took so in your Bible, over 7, if they were to just take the Father's name and put it in the pages every time it was in the manuscripts, you would have that name over 7,000 times. That name would be coming out of your mouth constantly. And so what he did was they removed the 4 tetragrammaton letters and they replaced it with the word Lord. Well, we have a problem with that because first, just taking away and changing, you're not to do that. But what they changed it with, if you look at its origins, it's Baal. And with that creates a whole nother problem. I got scriptures over and over and over where our ancestors dropped the true name and began to worship after Baal. And
so that's who Lord is referring to, right, Ryan?
Yes, when you look it up, it would be in your Strong's. It's the Hebrew Strong's 1167, I believe is what it is. And when you look up the word Lord, it's Baal is a synonym of Lord. You're saying the exact same thing, just in another language. And so there's a connection with them.
It's very interesting to me too how they all have 4 letters. It's like you can kind of see pretty easily that there's a correlation there. The other thing I wanted to comment on too was the name Jehovah is also a reference again to Jupiter, and that's why when we say Job or Jove and Jehovah, that's all Jupiter. And you're talking about the age of Pisces and all these references. So unfortunately, That's what happens through history is things get conflated, and then their meaning is entirely changed. And then after, few generations, you have no idea where you even came from. And that's how I think most of history has happened, unfortunately.
It's actually very absurd because you are not following the rules of language. You can't have a language without rules, and you can't have a language in which you can just break rules whenever you choose to, meaning like the letter S. The letter S has a very specific sound. You can't then turn around and use the letter G to represent the letter S. That's going to cause confusion. You must stay within the confines of that. And so if we have the letter Y, Yahovah, that's what they say, Yahovah. Let's just start there. Why are we saying Jehovah? Where did you get the J from? When does the letter J ever make the Y sound? Name one word where the letter J makes the Y sound in the English language. It don't. Yet we're constituting it as that. You're breaking the rules of language. It makes absolutely no sense, and it's because it's confusion. It's babble. It's a made-up word. Man created it, so it can only be polluted.
It used to not even be a letter, right, Ryan? Like that
Yeah, it was only a Roman numeral.
Okay.
And that's it wasn't a letter in any language, none.
Yep. How about let's go to the name God. Tell us about that one.
That's another one where, so, you know, the Hebrew language, Elohim. So I asked the question, okay, where are we getting? We've either translated this or we've transliterated it. We clearly didn't translate it. So it must be transliterated. Where are you getting the word God from? From Elohim. And then, so you begin to read writings outside. You know, a lot of people, they don't read like Esdras, and they won't read Jubilees. If it's not in the 60s, it's not one of the 66 books, they don't want to read it. But that's a mistake. You should be reading, you know, all the ancient. And then as you're discerning, you can begin to understand, you know, what may be true and what may not be true. It may not be considered inspired, but that does not mean that there's not critical information in there. And so, you know, you start reading the book of Enoch, and it goes into these angels, and it's giving you descriptions of these angels. And it gets to this third angel, and it says, this is the angel who caused Eve to be deceived and brought in death to all men. That would be Satan. Satan's the one that caused Eve, and it says that his name is God Rael. Now here we are using God. It's no different. He's mimicking the Father. The Father's name is Yahuwah. And if you go to Psalm 68:4, the Father says, sing praises in my name, Yah. So he's giving you like a shortened form of his name. And here we have that, we can directly correlate this name God Rael to the enemy. And here we are proclaiming the name God. I believe we are not supposed to do that. We have the ability to understand Elohim, to write it in our language, to say it in our language, to have complete understanding with it. So why are we using anything else?
Yeah, very, very pertinent, man. Very interesting. And then
when people in their prayers, they end their prayers with Amen. The actual term is Amen. Well, why didn't we just carry that straight over into our language? Why did you shorten it to Amen? And then I have to go no further than the Egyptian culture, and they're worshiping a sun deity called Amen Ra. All these are names of blasphemy that we will be holding at the end of days, according to the book of Revelation.
How do you spell the correct version of that name, of that word, Ryan?
In the English language, it'd be Amain.
Okay, I've never seen that before. Let's see, and that's the issue, is that we don't see these things in front of us. You know, they have to be presented to us.
Yeah, you can pull it right up in the Strong's Concordance. Tells you how to pronounce it.
Okay, and what is the meaning for that?
Let it be so.
Okay. Yeah, that's beautiful. I really like that one. Great. Are there any other words that you want to go over quickly, Ryan, before we move on?
Yeah, that's probably the main one. Definitely go back and study names. Go back to the Hebrew language, understand what's been done, and that we do have those 4 tetragrammaton letters. They did not have the vowel points, and we can understand. We know how it was sounded. Don't be afraid to proclaim it. Don't be afraid to stand on it. It was given to you from above. Same thing with the son's name. We know the prophesied name was Yahushua. You don't have to, you study it, and when you see it, trust in it, proclaim it. You will be just fine. You're trusting in what was given from you from above. Acts 4:12.
And what was originally? Right. What was originally given from above.
That's right.
I
Now
mean,
you're
of
putting your
course,
trust in him. You're not putting your trust in what man's done and man creating something and man handing it to you and saying this is his name and you're grabbing it. You know, it's like it's no different than if I were to hand you, say, a handful of precious stones, Dave, and say 10 of them, and one was authentic but 9 were not, and they looked identical, and I said, hey, you can have that precious stone. Are you just going to say, well, they all look the same, this one's good? Or are you going to say, well, I know one of these is the precious one, these other ones, they look like it, but there's one that I know is precious? Would you not, like, let me inspect it, let me get a magnifying glass, let me put it
oh
under a
yeah,
microscope, can I inspect these a little bit so I can try to get a best scenario to pick that precious stone? Of course you are. Well, why would we not do that with our Creator's name? If all of our souls rest on a name, that's what Scripture says, then why are we not looking for that precious? Why are we just picking up this one looks good when we know there's a precious one?
there's a lot of laziness. I feel, people are, like you mentioned before, Ryan. People are so they're just going with the swing of their day, and they say, "Oh, I don't have time for that," or they get complacent. Maybe would be the proper word. And it's a problem, man. Even for when you're talking about, as of course I'm a scientist, when you talk about science, you don't get lazy, man. That's the last thing you need to do as a scientist. You got to go in open-minded and let the facts and let the evidence direct your conclusions. And even when I look through the scientific community, I'm looking at people, I'm like, you guys are not doing that at all. In fact, a lot of it is just who's paying you and what do you want me to say so you pay me and leave me alone. And that's unfortunately how a lot of the world actually works. It's not about getting to the truth. The truth is going to
Yeah,
make a bunch of people beggars because they don't have any money anymore.
yeah, wisdom comes from the Father. And so if you got a bunch of people who don't want the Father, then you're going to have a bunch of people who walk around without wisdom. How do you walk around without wisdom? Do not lean on your own understanding. See, there are certain oracles of the Father, certain primary precepts in which your mind, you must have always formulated according to the Father. You're putting your trust in the Father. All your hope, all your trust is in the Father. And so I don't lean on my own understanding. And so everything I'm doing in the world, I'm comparing it back to the Scriptures. Well, most people don't even read the Bible anymore. They don't read Scripture.
Yeah.
And so if you're not feeding yourself, you're starving yourself spiritually. And when you're out in the world, you're going to make decisions based off of a worldly mindset, and that you'll never be at the end result where you want to be. You must go back. So your mind's like a computer. You must go back. We can't help how we were raised. I wasn't raised as a religious person. My parents didn't raise me that way. I didn't know anything about it. I was raised very, very worldly. And so it's not until I'm 30 years old where I start taking this seriously. And so there's many things that we just don't have control of. But once you become an adult, especially with what's happening today, with everything that's happening today and all the evil that's around us, the vile wickedness, the vilest people are being exalted, which means evil is all around you. So now we really got to shake out of it. We really got to start sinking into this book and unlocking these secrets, because it's what's going to save us.
Yeah, it's like what you said to me before too, Ryan, is that it seems like the most evil, vile people are the ones who are most exalted. You get the most money, you get the most notoriety, and you got people with beautiful hearts and beautiful spirits, that have no money at all, and all they do is help other people, and they end up on the sidelines, always.
Absolutely.
And the whole system, I mean, like you said, when you look at the state of the world, we're at the end, guys. It doesn't get much worse than this. It really does not. I mean, everything's everything. It feels like it's a charade to me. It's all put on. It's all fake. It's all, how can I get the most attention? And
Yeah.
the only thing I'm thinking about, man, is what can I do to help people the most? That's always my directive. How can I be of service to the Creator the best way I can possibly do with the gifts that I've been given? And then not only say that, but then you go out and you do that and you live that, and you let your actions in your heart be a testimony for what you believe, instead of saying,
Absolutely.
oh, I believe in this figure, I believe in this book or whatever. Go do the work. There's not, man,
Yep.
if you go help someone on the side of the road who needs help, I'm not saying, don't be foolish. I'm just saying in general teaching, they don't care what you believe and what you say. They care that you gave them food and you gave them a drink. And actually, it says this in the Bible a lot, and a lot of the other religious texts is that when I was in need, you fed me or you clothed me or you gave me shelter. I mean, that's kind of what it's about for me. Is let your testimony be how you live, and be a good person, man. And
yeah, you can't help you can't help everybody in the world. Poverty's always been here. It'll be here until the Father redeems everything. But everybody's made in the image of the Father. Everybody has that spark of life. And so if you saw somebody who is destitute, if I see somebody and they really need water, they need food, or they need clothing, how could I ever turn them away? And I do believe most people are like that. But it's hard to trust anybody now today, and that's where you're seeing this heart waxing cold, because you really have to, for a lot of people, they really don't feel like they have any choice but to close themselves off, because otherwise you're susceptible to wickedness at your door.
Yeah, I think, and for me, the reason for that, primary reason, I think, is because the world is so evil, and the systems that control the world are so evil that it forces people into very difficult situations. I agree with you, Ryan. I think most people would not be that way. They wouldn't be so hardened and jaded. But you know what? If you're extorted for your talents, like for your entire life, you get paid like minimum wage, and you're making the owner of the company ridiculously wealthy. And the owner looks at you and sees that you have like a wife and like 3 kids, and they're like, nah, he's good. And all you would have to do is give him maybe a few thousand extra dollars a year or something, and that person, man, would be a loyal worker and would bring happiness. I'm not saying across the board. I'm saying I think a lot of the general issues would be solved if you treat people correctly, fairly. Be authentic, be upfront with people. And since we're not seeing that hardly anywhere, especially in the corporate world, in my opinion, it makes people bitter and jaded, and then that ends up being passed to the people that we meet when we go out on a daily basis, and that's a problem.
For sure. Absolutely.
All right, let's go into how did you get into the 1611 Bible, Ryan, and also the Folio Shakespeare?
Well, whenever that voice had spoken to me and told me to look for his name, and when I found his name through a guy on the internet. The first very beginning of me finding his name was he had a 1611 Bible he had bought it at Walmart, and he was going through. He was amazed that he was able to get this replica of the 1611 replica, and I had never heard of the 1611. And so I was fascinated. I was like, whoa, what is this? And as he's flipping through the pages, I noticed the name Jesus was not in there. At this time, I'm proclaiming that name. And so I was a Christian. And so I see that name is not in this King James Bible. And it immediately just intrigued me. And I knew that this was of the Father. He had just told me to find his name. And now I'm not seeing this name in there. And so I had to have that book. And so I order the book. And when the book is delivered to me, it's put into my hands. And I saw a hidden image on one of the pages. And I didn't know what was hidden, but I knew that there were hidden things in this book. I just didn't realize exactly how big it was going to end up being. It ends up being Francis Bacon, Shakespeare, all kinds of things brought together. But
all right, so Ryan, so you found this. Refresh me if I'm correct here. You found this on a random YouTube video that popped up on your feed or something, right?
Yes.
Okay, and that, of course, you believe, I'm sure, fully that was put in front of you by the Father to serve a purpose.
Yeah, it got the 1611 in my hands.
Okay, and then where does it go from there? I believe you saw Peter Amundsen as well, right?
Well, so once I find this image, I was working with another man, and I was a boss at this place, and he worked under me. And we would talk about the Bible. If I was finding something, I would just, because I didn't have really anybody to talk to other than my wife. And so as men, we like to talk to other men about things. And so he was one who actually would listen to me. And so I go to him with this book, and I tell him, I said, man, I got this book. I said, it's unbelievable. And I show him the picture. And as soon as he opened it up, he said the same thing. He said, man, there's something hidden in this book. And I said, I believe there is too. And he says, man, can I take this home with me? And I said, well, sure. And so he had it for a couple of weeks, and he was the one who actually found the first 2 ciphers. And he shows me the first two ciphers, and I'm just blown away. And so we head out to Asher, and we ultimately find the keystone. This is when we say, okay, we need to start backtracking. We need to find out exactly who had this book in their hands. This is a real map, so we need to find out who put this map in here. And so we come across Bacon. And then once we come across Bacon, that's when I came across Peter Amundsen. And that's when I put the two together. The Shakespeare Folio and the 1611 are actually working together. And so I came at it from the end point working back. Everybody else is at the beginning point working forward. And with Peter Amundsen's work and with all these other people's work, I was able to formulate how to find the ciphers, exactly what I'm looking for, because I'm already standing out here at the location. And it was, I believe it was far easier to do it that way. The Father put me in a position to succeed.
Now, what year was that you found his work, Ryan?
2017.
Okay, for Peter Amundsen, right?
Yeah, it would have been around. It would have been in 2017.
Okay, and his documentary, I think it's called the Shakespeare Code, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And I highly encourage. I've seen that at least 3 times. It's brilliant. Every time I watch it, I enjoy it so much. He did a great job. He put that together really well.
Yes, he did.
If where can people find that? Is that on Amazon?
I just pull it right up on YouTube.
Okay, all right. And so what's interesting about this, partly for me too, is that of course I've been involved with the Oak Island mystery since 2015, and I saw Peter Amundsen on the first season of The Curse of Oak Island, which I believe was 2013. I didn't see it till right before season 3 started, so it was around 2015 that I first was aware of this. And the reason that I became interested was because what he presented, he was talking about the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life, the kind of the esoteric Judaism. And so I didn't know a lot about that. So I used that as an opportunity to research that topic. And then from there, I got really involved with the Oak Island mystery. And I've talked to Peter a couple times, probably more than a couple times, and asked him a few questions and stuff. He's a nice guy. He's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And when first time I had seen ciphers of this nature, especially related to the Shakespeare works, and a few things started to come together for me because, like I had said previously, I knew there was something additional hidden in the Shakespeare works. I didn't understand it. I felt it. I felt it when I was 17 or 18. And then seeing Peter draw lines, with protractors and rulers and things, and forming these angles and all this stuff, I'm like, man, I wouldn't have thought of this, but I'm looking at it and it looks accurate to me. You can't, and like we've talked about too, Ryan, you can't fabricate that kind of a number of things that fit together so perfectly. It's beyond comprehension how that could possibly happen if it was not intentional.
Yeah, it's not possible. I have Bacon coded so many times in ciphers, just regular capital letter ciphers, just on running down or horizontal on a page. There's so many times that takes place. It's not possible that it could be coincidence. So it's by design. So once we understand that, they actually had professionals look at the cipher on the Shakespeare codes. He's supposedly a genius, and he creates his own ciphers. And he looked at the one on the Tragedy of Cymbeline. It creates a 3-4-5 triangle, and it has Rosy Cross embedded into the triangle. And when the man looked at it, he said, "There's 1,000% that was done on purpose. Whoever did this book encoded that cipher in there." And they said, "Well, what does it mean?" And he says, "Well, if you want to understand the cipher, read the cipher." And so they very much put these ciphers in this book, and this book is telling you Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon is the one. Now, is there other people involved? Of course there is, but he's the primary. He's the mastermind, and we see this in the 1611. If you open up a 1611 Bible, and if you were to go to Psalms 136 verse 22. Now, like we said, taking numbers and making fresh numbers out of them. That's one of the things Bacon tells us to do. It's in his sonnets. And 36 minus 1 is 35. Reversed is 53. And so here we have this Rosicrucian number. And you go down to verse 22, and there's an arrow right next to the number 22, and it's pointing down to the word servant. Bacon's leaving you a message. His birthday was on January 22nd. He's using that 136 and switching it around to give you the number 53. And then he's leaving you a message. His message is, I was a servant of the Father. That's his message. I truly believe he heard the voice of the Father, and the way his writings are and the way he's implemented everything, I believe that he did have full understanding, and he knew exactly where to put it. He designed it exactly the way the Father wanted him to design it. And we're able to walk in it today because we have true faith. And as you said, if you have true faith, why are you not picking up that book and walking in it, making it happen, making it come to life? You got to put in the work, put in the action.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the very least, like you said, just pick it up and read it. It's not going to hurt you, you know. Listen to what Ryan's saying, you know, watch my podcast, watch Jake Roberts' podcasts, and just let it wash over you, and then, you know, ask for the wisdom and ask for the guidance. Say a prayer, you know, or if you're not into prayer, do a meditation, whatever you want to do, but just look at the information and it will actually speak to you, especially if you sit with it for a while, you know, like in a silent state, silent mind, you know, it will tell you where to look and what to do. And that's actually also stated many times in the Bible, is if you need the wisdom, just ask and it will be shown to you what to do, and even what to say as well.
Yes, he writes about this. So I got it right here. You can pick it up. It's called the Confessions, the Rosicrucian, Emma Fraternitatis, and Confessio. This book, they are confessing what they have done. And he's telling you, we built a temple and it holds a massive treasure. And that treasure is of the Father. And if you think that you're going to find it and live this pompous life, and then you'll never find it. He says, this is only going to be found when the Father favors it. And when Elohim chooses the time and the person to find it and to bring it to the world. And that time is now. It is happening now.
Okay, now this is, of course, in reference to the third temple that it stated in the Bible that it will be built. And of course, Ryan's saying that it's already built, right, Ryan?
Yes, they built it 400 years ago. That's the whole purpose of this map, is to lead you to a mountain in which a temple is built inside of the mountain. And they left the Ark of the Covenant in there. It's I change not. The Father does not change. This was done the same way, just a little different, but taking people and leading them to a mountain. That's the whole purpose.
Now, what year was this one published in, the Confessio?
It was published in 1650. One was published in, that's a two-part book. So the first one was published in 1614, and the second one was published in 1615, and it was published by an uncertain author. So we don't know who the actual author is. But when you read the confession, obviously it's somebody who knows the work, who knows what was done. I believe it was Francis Bacon who wrote that, who published that.
Okay, now I believe the idea is that the lineage passed from the Knights Templar down to the Rosicrucians, then down to the Freemasons. Would you agree that's accurate?
Yes. Well, I according to him, John Dee was definitely a part of this. He has drawings of it. You know, this man in the cape. You can actually find him in the 1611 on the cover photo. You have the man pointing down, dressed as a captain. The man that's directly below him is John Dee. He's wearing the caped hood. He's got the long beard. It's a depiction of John Dee. John Dee, they have a picture of John Dee passing the light of knowledge, this lantern, or the light, what they call the light of knowledge. It's the Ark of the Covenant, and he's passing it over an open grave to Francis Bacon. So we know how Francis Bacon got it. I got John Dee in ciphers. So John Dee, Francis Bacon very much, I'm dead certain he got this from John Dee. Now the question is, how did John Dee get it? Well, it opens up a whole deal, because I truly believe that they've lied about this man, and they say that he got tangled in with this other man. I can't remember his name, but this other man was real wicked, and they were doing these seances and stuff like that. And I believe it's a lot of hearsay. There's actually a letter that was found of John Dee, and it was in a book of his, because at that time period, John Dee had the biggest library in the world. He is referred to as his nickname was 007. He's where you get the name James Bond. I mean, that's where they get the idea from. He was the original 007. He had spies all over the world, in every castle, all around. He resided within Queen Elizabeth courts. She respected him greatly. He was a scientist. They looked at him as a wizard, as a sorcerer, but what he was doing was what we would know as science, making scientific experiments and things of this nature. He was just a brilliant mind. And according to him, he unlocked, from what I've been able to gather, he unlocked a secret. He unlocked a secret text in a book called the Book of Enoch, and it led him to the location where the Rosicrucians hid the Ark of the Covenant.
Okay, John. It led John.
John D.
Okay. What year roughly do we think that happened? Sometime in the 1500s, probably. Right?
It would have been it would have been in the 1500s. I believe in the 1540s.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we know the Knights Templar found the treasure. We know that they smuggled it into France, and we know that it was hidden there for a time period. And then somehow John D gets it and hands it off to Francis Bacon. And Francis Bacon says, I'm going to complete the scriptures and fulfill them, and we'll hide it, and we'll create the Bible, and we'll mask the map inside of the Bible, and then let the Father choose who he wants to unlock it and to give it to the world.
Yeah, so he did his part, right?
Yes, no doubt about it. He was a prophet, and he's performing scripture. So like Revelation 10 says, this was written 1900 years ago. Okay, we need to understand this. The man named John wrote this 1900 years ago. Now, it says that a book is going to come into the world, and it's going to be given amongst the multitudes of men. And 7 translators or 7 thunders utter their voices, and they're about to write. And John hears this, and he's about to write what they're saying. But a voice tells John to seal up those things. You're not to utter those. So we have secrets being put inside of this book that's going to come into the world. And these secrets that these 7 thunders are putting in this book are going to unlock the mystery of Elohim. That's the Ark of the Covenant. This was written 1900 years ago. Now here we are, 1500 years later. And we have a book called the 1611 King James Bible, in which we know several men put secrets in this book, in which has unlocked a mountain in which is claiming to have the Ark of the Covenant in it, which would be the mystery of Elohim. How did that man know that? How did that man know that that was going to happen 1900 years ago? There's no way. Unless you actually saw it, unless it was actually shown to you and these prophecies are real, there's no way you could know it. Now, Francis Bacon, 1500 years later, knows this chapter. How am I going to do this? And he says, I'll replicate Revelation 10. I'll create a book called the 1611 King James Bible, and I'll put a map inside of it, which will have the secrets, the 7 thunders, and these secrets will unlock the mystery of Elohim. He's making scripture come to pass by doing it. He believes he's that man. No doubt about it.
So now what got you to the map within the Bible? Because there's a lot of pictorial pages at the front of the 1611. Why did you focus on the map?
The only thing we had was a captain pointing down. Interesting. And then a compass with south in the wrong position, in which we took the numbers and we're just mix matching them, jumbling. When you take those fixed numbers, you can mix match them many different ways. And then we took the south and we twisted it in the correct position. So now you got a whole new set of numbers. And I believe there was like 40 something different variances of numbers that you would get. And we just started punching them into GPS. And whenever we landed on Asher, Arkansas, with the captain pointing down to Asher, that's all we needed. Once we got out there and we found the keystone with the G on it, we knew it was a real map. We didn't know what we were looking at, but we knew it was a real map. And the Father, with me and this other man, over the course of 3 years, he showed us every single cipher. It was an amazing time. We would sit at the table for hours, and me and this man, we would just be these things would be popping up. I would go home and I'd be texting him, man, look what I just found. He'd be texting me, look what I just found. And within the matter of 3 years, we had it all to where we could actually convey it to the world and give it to the world and be able to answer at least the most basic questions so people can understand it and realize this is physical evidence and we should probably take a closer look at it.
Definitely, yeah. Okay, so that's interesting. So if people don't know, there's the facsimile of the 1611 King James Bible. I highly encourage getting a copy if you guys are into this at all. It's well worth looking at it very seriously. On the map section, if I'm understanding this correctly, basically along the margin, on the left margin, and then the top of the map of the page, there's different numbers, and they're like, listed in order as if it's some kind of in a longitude or latitudinal something. And then there's a compass off to the right side, and that's pointing to some of the different numbers at the top, right, Ryan? And then off to the left. And also off to the right, maybe.
Yes, you're kind of cutting in and out.
Okay. So basically, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm hearing you now.
Okay. Right. So on the 1611 map, you've got on the left and then on the top, you've got the different numbers that are labeled. It looks like a ruler almost. And then the actual compass rose is pointing to some of those numbers. Is that right?
Yes, I believe you're correct.
Okay. And then you just went through all of the combinations, and then you end up in Asher, Arkansas, with the latitude and the longitude.
Yeah. Okay. So what you have is you have a compass, and when you zoom it in, it's actually a compass and a clock. And so you have a compass hand, which is running one way, and then you have a clock hand. So you have these two. So you actually have 4 sets of numbers. There's 4 dials in which you'll get 4 sets of numbers. And then when you turn south in the correct position, if it's a clock, you're going to move it 15 ticks. It's a quarter of a turn. You'll move your dial hands back 15 ticks, and you'll get a new set of numbers. And when you get those sets of numbers, you ultimately get the 3-4-5 triangle. That's how they hid it. They hid the location within the degrees of a 3-4-5 triangle.
All right. Now the 3-4-5 it's a right triangle. Is that right?
Yes, it's basically 90. The building blocks. You can't build without it. You know, it's basically like the fundamental. It's like the fundamental rules for building.
All right. So this is what features the 53-degree angle, the 37-degree angle, and the 90, right?
Yes.
Okay, and this is the same one, of course, that Petter Amundsen uses in great detail in his presentations, and it's very important to the Rosicrucians. I think also he was saying that the Freemason compass, basically the compass and the ruler, is essentially based on that 3-4-5, the same angles in there. That's how they came up with that actual diagram, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Okay.
You'll find it in paintings. They do it in just about all of their paintings. It's like a square, and then you'll have a triangle and another triangle stacked on top, and they're giving you that 3-4-5 triangle. It's so prominent in Freemasonry because, like I said, you know, it's like the fundamentals of building. And you have to understand that when they call themselves Freemasons today, it's just like a lodge. But back then, when you called yourself a Freemason, you were a master at it. You were the best. You don't call yourself a Freemason unless you're the best of the best. These men were the best.
That's why they call it free and accepted now, right? Because you don't have to actually be.
Well, Freemason, the reason why they're calling themselves Freemasons is because they built the Father's temple. And of course, if you're going to build a Father's temple, you're going to do a beautiful job. You're not going to do bad work for the Father. And so they would have spent much time building this. And so they would have considered themselves master masons after finishing the Father's temple. And they did it on their own free will. And so they're referred to as Freemasons. Nobody told them to do this. It was their own free will to do this because they felt like they were the ones to fulfill the scriptures.
Now, this is the Temple of Solomon, right?
The first one was the Temple of Solomon.
Right. But they built all 3, correct?
Well, so there was a man named Abiff who they say that's who they correlate as, I believe, the very first of what they would call Freemasons. And he was the one who did build the first Temple of Solomon. So yeah, they built the third temple, and so they're definitely going to correlate themselves to the first temple. Who built the first temple? Abiff. And so that's why they're doing that connection. Just as he built the first one, we've built the last one.
Okay, now that's Hiram Abiff, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I believe that is his name.
Okay. All right, Ryan. So you find all of the coordinates, and then you happen to live close by, and so you go to the site, and then what happens? You find something. along the ledge,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I'm searching, we believe we're looking for a cave, and so we eventually do come across this cave, this Keystone Cave with the G. And I knew when I saw that G that this was divine. And I knelt down and I took my hand and I rubbed it across the face of the cave. And when I did that, it was the best way I could describe it was deja vu. But it wasn't deja vu. I was literally behind myself, watching myself kneel down, rubbing the front of the cave. As quickly as I saw that, I was back in my body, and it was the most crazy experience I've ever experienced, but it most certainly happened. I knew in that moment that I was chosen to be there. This is divine. We are not in control. He knew everything that was going to happen before he ever laid the first stone. It's already been, we're merely just playing it out. He knew every decision we were going to make, and we are making those decisions now. And I just knew that I was chosen to be there for whatever reason. And I let him down for all my life, the first 30 years of my life, and more than that. I am not going to let him down on this. I refuse. I will do it in the commandments. We will figure this out. We will squeeze that map in. He's calling men. We know this. There's several men that are going to come together, that are going to join to unlock this and to bring it to an end. And that is happening now. And I believe we're closer than ever. I believe here very soon, in just a few months, we're going to do our dig and we are going to find the other half of Francis Bacon, and it is going to unlock this whole mystery.
Okay, now Ryan, before we get to the part about the skeleton, because I do want to talk about that. So on the map in the 1611 Bible, there's also it looks like a stream or a creek or a river, I guess, if you will, on the map. And then when you got out to the site, that matched the contours of the land, the stream.
It is identical. You got the creek,
Okay.
and that creek breaks off and goes into the woods and wraps around a hillside and goes back out to the creek. And on top of that hillside, in the drawing, it's a wall, but in this case, it's a rock shelf. And at the end of that rock shelf is what they're calling in the picture the Golden Gate. But out here, it's the cave. It's the cave with the G on it. If you're a bird flying over that location, it is identical. It's identical. It's amazing when you're standing out there. And then, of course, we have John Speed right there in the map, who was the very first aerial view map maker. I mean, it's all right there for you. It all makes total sense. The only question is, why did you leave an aerial view map? Because you don't need the aerial view map to find the keystone. You need the aerial view map to find the upper half of his body. And I believe we have done that.
Okay, so you get out to the site, you find the cave, and by the way, the Golden Gate is the gate that Yahushua entered Jerusalem. Is that correct? I believe on the donkey, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then that gate was sealed, I believe, and no one else could enter it. Okay, right. So that's an important part of the story. So you find the equivalent of that at the site. There's a cave. You guys had to dig this cave out, Ryan. Tell people about how that happened.
So when we get there, it's full of mud. I'm thinking, this is a map. It's leading to this cave. There's something in the floor of this cave. And so I just took a stick, and well, you got about 4 feet of mud there. And so mud and sludge. And so we start digging it out. And we get about, 3 feet into the cave. And that's when we found the first human leg bones. And we start pulling all these bones out. And we get all the whole area clean. And we only have half a body. We have 2 hips, 2 upper legs, 2 lower legs, and 2 kneecaps. And so we finished excavating out the rest of the cave. It took a while. I mean, you're talking, it probably took us 2 months, a good 2 solid months to get all the dirt out of that cave. And we ended up finding a shovel head in the very back at the bottom. And we also found some wood beams and some wood planks, 1 inch thick, hand carved. And so they definitely left physical evidence when you got here so that you would know it's real, but it doesn't give you the answer as to where is the entrance into the temple that you've built. You still have to figure that out.
Okay, so you found the bones, and of course it's very strange to find half of a skeleton. And
yes.
You brought that to the authorities first, I believe. And what did they tell you?
Yeah, the authorities didn't really. I took him to the Springdale Police Department, and they really didn't care. So I took it to the University of Arkansas because I just live right here. It's in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I'm just 20 minutes from Fayetteville from the university. So it works out great for me. So I take it right up to the university. The anthropology department looked at them, and they said that they were at least 200 years old. And whoever owned this, whoever's bone this was, he had a big leg muscle. Of course, trucking up and down the Ozark Mountains. And 400 or 500 years ago, we were a lot stronger than we are today. And so that's really all they could tell me. It was too old to be classified as a crime scene or anything like that. And so I was actually given the bones back, and it was they told me that it would be referred to as an archaeological dig. And so when I find ciphers of Francis Bacon literally telling me, I've left my legs there for you, I want you to think about why I've left my legs. Well, now I know this is not a crime. I have found your map. Your map led me here. You're telling me you left your legs for a reason, and I have your legs. So I need to figure out why he says, think on why did I do that? I need to figure out why you did that. And I also need to figure out where is your other half.
Okay, so you go back to the cipher, and what does it say about the upper half and how to find that?
Well, there's several different ciphers pertaining to his upper half, because that's what this whole thing is about. The leg bones are given to you once you find the location. If you've unlocked that compass and Asher, and you're there, and you found the site, you have unlocked the map. Those legs are just given to you. You don't really have to do anything except go to the cave and take the mud out of it, and boom, there they are. The upper half is not so. They were hidden. And he hides it in many different ciphers, but there's a couple that are really huge. And the one is the one that I was just reciting. You'll find that in the Shakespeare Folio. It's before King Henry IV. It's a prologue, and he's telling you that they did a secret work, and that if you won't believe his words, are you going to make him use his legs? How do you explain that? When that's exactly what I found, following your map.
Now, what does it say about the upper half, Ryan? How to find that? What are you supposed to do?
It doesn't. You got to kind of put that together, and that's done through several different ways. It starts on his funerary monument overseas. I don't forget what they call that place, but it has the plaque on the wall and then the one on the ground. And is
that Stratford upon Avon? Is that correct?
I believe that is it.
Okay, it's either where he was born or where he was buried. I can't remember which one.
Well, they say Shakespeare was born in Stratford. But this monument, it's a plaque. It sits on the wall, and it has many things going on with it. You've got the number 53 at the bottom, which of course he was only 52 at most. And so right there, you got this marker screaming Rosicrucian. You got
it said 53. Wow. Okay.
Sure does.
I didn't remember that. Okay.
Yeah, sure does. You have 4 different languages are printed on it. And in the Hebrew language, you got the menorah and the Ark of the Covenant. Those are 2 very prominent things that are supposedly of the Knights Templar treasure. They're proclaiming to have it, and they're using stacked letters. So like a Y with a T on top, a Y with an S on top, a Y with an E on top. These letters are being incorporated into the aerial view map with a couple of other ciphers to pinpoint you to a specific location. And when you find that symbol on the map, I truly believe that's what he's telling you. That's where my body really is. And we're about to, as we know, the scientific method, if you want to know if something's true or not, test it out. And so we're going to go and we're going to dig this site up, and I believe we are going to find the upper half of Francis Bacon.
Okay, now when you find, tell them about the rectification in the cipher and what happens after that.
The rectification, what do you mean?
Rectify the body, that phrase.
Yeah. So we came across, I did a video on it. You can go onto my YouTube page, Ryan Plaster. It's called The Chamber of Reflection. Much more than we thought it was. When you watch that is actually what's referred to as a cipher legend. It's how to read the cipher map. The legend wasn't put with the cipher. You had to find that. And it will lead you around the wall. And the first thing you have to do is, of course, find the tomb. You have to find the cave. You have to unlock the map. That's the first thing you have to do. Okay, we've done that. We've unlocked the map. We have found the cave. He says you're going to find bones there. And those, but we have a problem. There's something that needs to be rectified. And of course, we did find bones there, but we only found half of those bones. So we have a problem. We need to rectify that by finding the other half. So you go around the wall and he tells you, we unlock, okay, I know where your upper half is. And he says, when you rectify me, when you find my upper half, and you've put the lower half, the upper half, you will find the hidden stone. And that hidden stone is what's going to lead us into the temple, which ultimately will lead us to the Ark of the Covenant.
So it's obviously a stepwise process. You have to do things in the proper order and then figure out. And of course, that's essentially the definition of inductive reasoning, is that you're being shown things so that anyone can figure it out if you're using a fair amount of logic. Jake Roberts talks about that a lot. That's really what the scientific method is all about in itself. In terms of alchemy and references to rectifying the human body, that's essentially the core components of what alchemy is supposed to be. So that's also consistent and accurate with that. It's really, really phenomenal. And definitely go check out Ryan's page. You got a lot of videos up there, Ryan. It's under Ryan Plaster on YouTube. And also, of course, the show that you did with Jake Roberts, that's going to be on the Ghosts of Bacon channel on YouTube as well. That's a must watch, and it's really good because you have the visuals up on the screen. Me and Ryan tried to do that today, guys, but my phone is not allowing me to do a screen share, so we were not able to include the visuals. But if you want to see the visuals, I know for sure they're on the show that Jake did with Ryan on the Ghosts of Bacon podcast. Definitely check that one out. It's a little easier to follow some of the maps and stuff and the aerial views to get you to what Ryan's talking about. But in any case, okay, so then you put the body together. Now the stone that you're talking about, the stone, and for me, again, being someone who's studied biology for a long time and all the mystical traditions, the stone is essentially the philosopher's stone to me, which is equivalent to, in the human body, would be equivalent to the pineal gland as far as I'm concerned, or the third eye. And that's the contact point for your higher wisdom that comes through the brain. And so
he correlates the Philosopher's Stone to the Ark of the Covenant in your translator to the reader. He uses several different analogies, but he definitely is referring to the Philosopher's Stone and the Ark of the Covenant. Also, he's using Vulcan's armor, some tree that supposedly can cure all diseases, and he's comparing it with these. He's basically saying these are fables. And he's saying, but what we have is real, and not only is it real, but it's 1,000 times better than what the fables made up. It's really is interesting. If you have the 1611, read the translator to the reader. You're going to find it fascinating, and it's a shame that they removed it, because there's a lot of information in there that they go into great detail about language and about how translation and how you need to be very careful and you need to check and forgive them where they've come short translating things. So they're making it very clear you need to go back, you need to search this stuff. And I believe the Father looks at that, and that's how he tells somebody who truly believes or somebody who just says they believe. If you truly believe, then you're going to put the time in to know as much about him as possible.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things you had mentioned to me before too, Ryan, is that you want to make it so that if someone was just taking a hike and they stumbled across this Keystone Cave that's Ryan's talking about, and even if you dug it, which it would take a long time, as of course it took you guys a couple of months, that you're going to find some bones and be like, what is going on? And then that person would probably give up. Now, if you're in the scriptures and you're reading from the proper ciphers and everything, you're putting things together properly, then the idea is that the Father is speaking to you in a spiritual sense, and so that to make sure that when you're going about this, you're doing it for the proper reasons. You're not going to, first of all, it's not going to be random, whoever the person that finds it. And second of all, it has to be someone with a pure heart. And otherwise, it's not going to happen. You have to really be at it for long periods of time. And I think, I think it might take, like we were talking about, Ryan, before, is that this might be there might be a fair amount more of things that need to happen in the series, meaning that, okay, so then you find this hidden stone. Well, there might be another 6 or 7 things that you still have to do. You don't know it yet because you don't have the direction yet. But as long as you start at the initial contact point, which would be that Keystone Cave, then all you have to do is to follow the scientific method, follow inductive reasoning, go where you're asked to go with the clues and ciphers, and then it will take you to the end if you persist. And also, if you're doing it for the right reasons, you got to know where to look. If you don't have the Bible in front of you, you don't have the folio in front of you, you're probably not going to figure it out. In fact, almost certainly you're not going to figure it out.
Absolutely. You will never be able to figure it out if you don't have the folio or the 1611 King James Bible. And that's what's kept it hidden for so long. A lot of brilliant men have come into the world over 400 years. I do not have a brilliant mind. I would not be considered a mind of a genius. My mind is very average. I'm not dumb, but I'm very average. But I've researched things and I do know information and stuff like that. But it's not a special mind. This was different. This was the Father. This was the Father visiting us and showing men certain things, and but not giving it to them so directly, making them earn it. And by doing that, they're building their faith. We're living in a dark age. I had no faith. I have to learn. I have to learn all these things. The very basic oracles of the Father. We're having to learn now. And so as I'm unlocking this, I'm also learning how the Father operates and what pleases him and what doesn't please him, and chastisement, discipline. All these things come into play when you know the Father and when you're with the Father. I assure you of that. I assure you, if you are with the Father, discipline is going to be something that you become very familiar with. And it's just been a long journey, but it's a beautiful thing. And irregardless on even, like me and you were talking, I truly believe that we're going to go this summer here in just a couple months. We're going to go to this location and we're going to find it. And that's going to be it. Every time I go out there, I believe that. If it doesn't happen, if it's not there, do I stop? Absolutely not. We backtrack. We go back to the beginning and we continue to work and we press to find him. The ultimate goal is to find our Creator. He's here. I believe he's here in a literal sense and he wants us to find him. You can call it a game of hide and seek. And just as John D. he had wrote in a book, I believe I was mentioning it earlier, they had found a writing of his in one of his books. And what he wrote was, it's written that you walked with Adam and that you were friends with Abraham and that you would walk with them in the garden of the day. And he says, if that's true, I will find you. And I read that and it's just like, wow, that's the heart that we should have, man. If that's true, then I'll do everything I can to have that. I want that. And I do believe it. I believe it's absolutely true. And I believe that we can have that. And I believe we're this close. We are so close. If we'll just press forward and come together, doing it the right way in the commandments, we can get this done.
Now, the Father is supposed to be inside of the Ark of the Covenant, correct, Ryan?
Well, he's omnipresent. The Father is everywhere. He's not confined to one spot. But this spot is where he wants us to be, and he will manifest himself there. That's ultimately just like with Moses. Moses gets the people and he brings them to this mountain. And then there at the mountain, that's where the Father manifested himself to them. Same thing here. We want to come to this mountain. We want to enter it. And when we come before that ark, the Father will manifest himself. This is where he's going to rise. It's the end of days. And he says, that's what the whole purpose of the ark is being here, is so that the Father can rise up and show the whole world that he is real and that you should have been looking for him.
Okay, so this is a physical manifestation. I think you'd mentioned like a pillar of fire or a cloud, maybe something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is that there's a mountain in Asher, Arkansas, that is supposed to have the third temple built inside of it, already built. People in Jerusalem are waiting for the third temple to be built. Ryan's saying it's already built, and it's inside the mountain. And in Scripture it says that it will be inside of a mountain, right?
Yep. They believe a mountain in Israel. But you have to understand,
right.
Israel's not just a land. That's just what Israel's actually the people. That's really what Israel is. It's the people. Okay, where are the people of Israel? They're here in America. Most of us migrated here. And so this is where the Father is. This is our second chance. This is him gathering. He's going to gather what he calls his lost children. The 10 lost tribes have to be gathered together. How are they going to be gathered together? How are you going to gather together your children? He's going to do it with the Ark of the Covenant. He told us exactly where to put it. Bacon understood this. Zechariah 14, verse 4 and 5. He is describing the Ozark Mountains. If you go back and read it, there's only one mountain range that matches it within this very great valley. It's the biggest valley in the world, sits between the Appalachian and Rocky Mountains. It's right here in America. He's talking about a mountain which moves north to south, very rare. I believe there's only like 2 mountain ranges, maybe 3 in all the world in which you have a valley flowing east to west. They mostly flow north to south. And so this mountain range is so unique where he's describing. It's the Ozark Mountains. And look at what we have found here. That's why he's looking at it in Zechariah 14. It's all end times prophecy. It's all hidden until it's revealed to you, until the Father favors it and it's revealed. Now we can begin to understand it. But we actually have scriptures telling you exactly where this location is going to be.
Mm-hmm. So what you're really looking for is an entrance to get inside the temple, right, Ryan?
Yes.
Okay, now initially you thought it was what you're calling the Keystone entrance, which would be equivalent to the Golden Gate of the walled city of Jerusalem. But then tell everyone that you cleaned out the entire cave. What year was that you guys did that, by the way?
We cleared it out in 2017.
Oh, okay. That was a long time ago. Wow.
Absolutely.
But we had no idea.
But we had no idea what we're looking at. It takes time to unlock these ciphers, and you see what I'm saying?
Oh, definitely. So that was the same year that I did my work on Oak Island. Actually, I was up in Nova Scotia,
okay.
And of course, we filmed the whole thing and all that. And it's just very interesting that happened the same year. Was that in the summertime, Ryan?
It was in April.
Okay, for me it was in June. It's very, very close to each other. Okay, yeah. So then one of the idea that you had when you had cleaned out, because you initially thought that was the entrance, and then you cleaned out everything. Right, nothing in the cave, and then what did you guys do?
Yeah, once we realized there's no entrance in the cave to go anywhere else, we just have it's a tomb. We realize, okay, this is a tomb. So what are we looking at? Well, it's in the shape of a keystone, and a keystone sits above a doorway. And so we said, oh, well, even in my map, I have a tunnel here. Our door is under the ground, and so we began to dig. We dug 10 feet, and we hit a stone. It looks like concrete. I don't believe we'll ever be able to get in there. They sealed it off somehow. So that's not my entrance. We're not getting in that way. So and of course, okay.
Of course, the reference, sorry, Ryan, really quick. The reference to Jerusalem and to Yahushua entering the city is that gate was sealed after he entered, and there was not going to be anyone else entering through that entrance, which I believe is what the reference is.
Well, it's referenced off Ezekiel 44, I believe. It's called the Prince's Gate. And I believe this was Bacon, because this is being prophesied by the prophet Ezekiel, and he's talking about this prince going in with the glory of Elohim, the Ark of the Covenant. That's the another name for the Ark of the Covenant is the glory of Elohim. You can find this in 1 Samuel chapter 5. And so this prince and the Ark of the Covenant went into the temple through this gate. And the Father says that this gate is to remain shut. It is to be sealed and is to never be opened because it was for only the prince. And so I believe that's why they sealed it off. Right. We have to find the entrance. So there was a man-made wall to the right of the keystone with a hole in it. That also matches scripture. And so we decided to dig that out. And that ended up not being it. So that's when you realize, okay, you're doing things to make it have the appearance that that's the entrance, but when you put the work in, it's not there. I realized we need to be listening to Bacon's voice. We need to unlock the ciphers, interpret them correctly, and apply them correctly. And if we do that, we will unlock this.
And you guys can see Ryan did a really great tour of the Keystone Cave on his YouTube channel. I think a couple, actually. And you can see what it actually looks like. And you can see that there's clearly something that's not natural native rock. It looks like concrete. That's just, below the entrance of the cave that you guys dug out. big stone underneath it. There's very clearly something has happened here. There's some activity that's happened here. Okay, so you guys, so
they're master masons, so we know they were deep into concrete work. This whole mountain is made out of limestone. That's the fundamental ingredient for concrete. And so they would have made their own concrete right here, and that's exactly what they've done. It's an amazing thing. Like I said, we have so much physical evidence, not to mention the ciphers which brought you to the location. The fact that the world is not jumping up and down with complete and utter just joy and just going bonkers. And this mountain should be flooded with people. The fact that it is just so dormant just lets you know that the people are we are in a dark state.
Yep. Well, when I first saw the interview you did with Jake, I said, man, Ryan's really got something, guys. Everyone should be paying attention. Someone had requested to have me invite Ryan on my channel, of course, on my podcast. And of course, I was very happy to do that because I believe in it. I mean, I believe, and I'm a scientist. When I look at it, I'm looking at the evidence. I'm looking at the information. Of course, I have a lot of respect for Jake Roberts as well. And one of the things that really, and if you haven't seen it yet, I was also on Jake Roberts' podcast called The Ghost of Bacon a couple months back. And check that one out too if you're interested. The thing is that Jake had found, he used the same map that Ryan used in the 1611 King James Bible to find a cipher for Oak Island. So I was following what Jake was doing. I'm saying, and I created a lot of, I have a lot of information from when I was getting ready to do my presentation for Oak Island. And so I have a lot of detailed information and work I did. And when Jake presented what he did in terms of where he believes the entrance on Oak Island is to get down into what's called the money pit, where there's supposed to be, again, some kind of treasure in addition to, there's all kinds of treasure maps across the world. But in any case, in this case, the point that Jake selected, I was able to, as far as my data is concerned, I was able to independently verify that I believe he's correct. And based on, I didn't know anything he did. I applied what I did to what he did. And I felt so strongly that I came out in support of Jake on Jake's show that me and Jake, of course, did together. That I had Jake on my podcast as well. And then I'm looking at this same map. And I had never picked up the 1611 King James Bible in my life. I'm looking at the same map that Jake was looking at, of course, that Ryan's looking at. And I'm seeing, well, there appears to be a sort of a multi-layered, multi-level cipher. And in fact, Jake believes it's part of a master, very large cipher that probably encompasses most of the world in terms of that there's many sites that contain something, and the idea is to try to find out what's there. So, I agree. It's amazing. You got people paying attention to your channel, but in terms of, and I know I'm the last person that cares, but in terms of numbers, it's not thousands of people, Ryan. It's a few hundred people that are paying attention. And I look at it, I'm like, okay, guys, well, hey, if I'm one of the only people, one of the 400 to 500 people, fine, no problem. I believe in what Ryan's doing. The last thing I wanted to touch on too quickly was you have one more location at the site. I don't know if you wanted to mention it about the Omega symbol.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. When you'll find the hidden stone. So when you rectify the body, you bring the legs and the upper half together. It says you will find the hidden stone, but it also gives you a symbol, and that symbol is an upside down Omega symbol. And if you were to go, I think you did a measurement for me. It's right at a half a mile. If you were to go right out about a half a mile north of the keystone, you're going to find a rock shelf with an upside down Omega symbol carved into it. I did a video on it showing it. It's undeniable. It's absolutely amazing. And you have to ask yourself, what is the odds of that? It's not possible. It's not possible to have the Omega symbol with the keystone. Exactly. It tells you to go out, go away from. I mean, we're following directions, and exactly what the directions say we are finding out here. It's piece by piece. But we have so much evidence that cannot be denied. I didn't carve that. That's been there a long time. And so we have to ask the question, did this man do what he says he did? And if he did, how did he do it? And that's what we're doing. And like I said, the world, I don't think they're going to. I really did think they were at the very beginning. I truly believed that I was going to show this to the whole world, and the whole world was going to see it. But it didn't happen. And I know it doesn't really matter how many people are paying attention now. You plant the seed and you let the Father water it. And so I know that in the end, this work is going to manifest into something great, because we're putting everything we have into it, and it's done in the commandments, and it's done for the Father. And so he will favor it. This is his time. This is his work. And for me and you to be a part of it, out of 8 billion people on the planet, and to be able to talk about this evidence, this physical evidence, and to be able to go out there and stand out there and to do this with understanding, you're truly living. That is why you were born.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Jake found a part of a cipher that talked about a mini ox yoke, I believe. And so when you came on the show, when you're talking about the omega symbol, it does look like an ox yoke as well, in addition to an omega symbol. And
sure does.
Jake found that independently of you, Ryan. And so and I don't think he had known that part of the story yet. And so you're going forward telling the story, and Jake's like, yeah, actually, I found that same cipher, in reference to the same symbol. Okay, so when you guys first got out to the site, didn't you find that symbol before you found the Keystone Cave? You found the Omega symbol, right?
It sure did.
So describe to people what else is associated with that symbol. If you go above the symbol, right? Tell people what's above that symbol.
Well, so you're talking about in the chamber of reflection?
Yeah, the chamber of reflection, but like at the actual site, there's something above the symbol in the ground, right?
Sorry, bud, you froze up on me.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay. All right.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So there's like there's like something carved out of the shelf above the symbol, right? In an interesting shape.
Well, you have the Omega symbol carved out. That's the first thing. And then when you go behind the Omega symbol, you have a retaining wall, a man-made retaining wall. And that's right there. It has an open door, and it has 2 symbols. One's man-made for brick, and then the other one is the symbol for earth. And so we're putting this all together. I don't know of any other symbol that you're talking about outside of the Omega symbol being carved on there.
I'm referring to the brick wall, which you had already mentioned. That you guys actually took away the brick, didn't you, to see what was behind that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's gone now. We had an unfortunate thing happen, and I don't really want to get into it on here, but we were stopped, and we're doing some negotiating, and we need that body. We need that upper half. And so that's what we're going to focus on this summer, and we'll take it one step at a time. But for the time being, we can't really do no digging at the Omega. We pretty much have to go for that body at the Keystone.
And so you believe, Ryan, that stone, when you find the rectify the body and get the secret stone, you believe that stone's going to tell you to go to that Omega symbol, right?
I do. Yep.
Okay. And then the idea is that that's the entrance to the temple.
Yes. And I believe that it's very possible that the Omega symbol and the Keystone actually connect. So underground, you have a temple that's actually going that distance. It's almost a half a mile.
Yeah, it's very interesting in terms of the actual amounts of distances. It would fairly well complement the size.
Arkansas has more caves than any other place in the United States. We have caves that run here in Arkansas that I know that there's a couple that's been found that I believe run up to 3 miles. And so the idea of a cave being big enough to go from the Keystone to the Omega, and then them building a building into that cave, that can be done.
So do you think the temple is actually built inside of a cave system, or do you feel that they built the temple and then covered it with dirt and to make it into a mountain or something different?
I believe it was already an existing cave system. and they built inside of the cave system. Just I don't know what it's going to look like, but it's going to be beautiful, and it will definitely be concreted. It ain't going to look like a regular cave, but I do believe that it was originally a cave.
Do you think it might be like a very large, like vaulted ceiling with a temple in the center of it? It could actually look like
well,
that.
According to Ezekiel, it's 3 levels. It's actually 3 stories tall. And when you enter in, you're actually entering in at the middle level. There'll be a staircase going down, and then you have another staircase going up, and they're kind of stacked like this, kind of like not straight on top of each other, but kind of offset. And so you'll have three different levels. You come in the middle level.
Okay, and then it should be, you're thinking it's going to be fairly straightforward at that point in terms of what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, so basically you can it's so hard to say until we find that entrance and actually get in as to, exactly how is it structured. But there's no doubt that we have massive caves here, and it's very possible that it was already an existing cave and they're just building inside of it.
Brilliant. Okay, so you're going to continue to update people on your YouTube channel, right, Ryan, as the summer goes along and even into the fall and everything?
Yeah, I started doing videos. I would pump them out every couple of weeks or so, and then it'd get a month, and then there's times where I'll go a few months and really don't make videos. And here lately, it's been about once a month. I don't do it off what I want. I really let the spirit kind of. Sometimes I'll get in this and I'll get going, but I always make update videos, and I let people know exactly where we are in the work, everything that I can convey, and so you will get updates. I try to make a video about monthly, whether on scripture or ciphers, one of the two, and I just kind of stagger them, do a few on scripture, do a few on ciphers, and just go back and forth. And so I will definitely be keeping, you will definitely be hearing things about whether we were successful. If we were successful, you're all going to know. And if we weren't, you'll definitely be told, and you'll be told what we're going to do next. And if anybody sees this and has a heart to want to know the Father and want to be a part of this, then we definitely encourage you to contact us and let's see if we can get this done together.
What's the best place for people to get a hold of you, Ryan?
The best thing to do would probably be to comment on the videos. The latest video I've done. You can get a hold of me on Facebook. I do have a Facebook page. I don't go on there. Never. My wife kind of keeps up with it for me. So she'll let me know if somebody private messages me on Facebook. That is another way that you could get a hold of me. If it's not right away, it may take a few days or a little bit longer, but I will get in touch with you. But that's really the only 2 ways you can contact me right now.
Okay, and then your YouTube channel is just under Ryan Plaster. There's only one person, I believe, under that name, right?
I think so. It's a testimony. That's why I don't name it after Ark or whatever. Is that channel is a testimony as to what the Father has done with me and how He's led me. It's not been by our might and by our smarts. It was the Father who showed us all this, and we're merely His servants obeying, and we're putting in the time and effort, and He's showing us what we need to where we can get this done. And so that's what the channel is. It's just my testimony as to the Father and what He's done for us.
Wonderful. Yep. Really great. All right, Ryan. Well, we're getting to the end here. Is there any kind of scripture or passage you want to leave people with, or just a final comment?
I'll leave you with my favorite one. It also ends up being Francis Bacon's favorite scripture. It's Proverbs 25:2. It said, "It is the glory of Yah to conceal a thing, but it is the honor of kings to seek out the matter." And so the Father loves to hide things. He's hidden this. He wants us to find it. It's his glory to conceal something, and it's our honor to seek it out. When we seek it out, it becomes very honorable for us, and when we find it, it's to His glory. And if you'll start putting that in your mind, do not lean on your own understanding, and start diving into the scriptures and getting these things back that have been removed from us, the names and things like that. Start coming into the commandments. The Father, you just never know. There's so many secret things that He's done that we don't even know of. Who's to say that He doesn't put something in your hands and which is going to do something just absolutely amazing. And so he hides things, no doubt about it. It's the glory of y'all to conceal a thing, but it's the honor of kings to search out the matter. It's our duty to seek him out and search out these hidden things. And so I say we all come together. 2 minds are better than 1. 10 minds are better than 6. And so the more we get paying attention and the more we get these books in their hands, diving into them themselves, we will be able to do this.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much, Ryan. And if I'm sure Ryan would love to hear from you if you guys got something that you want to add, or you have a piece of information that might be useful, or if you want to learn more about the proper names in the Bible and what the Father is asking us to do here on Earth. I'm sure Ryan would love to hear from you guys. And I really appreciate you being here, man. It was just a great conversation. I implore people to pay attention. It's a real thing that's happening, and even if there's only a few hundred people paying attention, I believe that the Father works in the mysterious ways that are going to benefit the Earth and the rest of humanity. If you guys want to find me, go ahead, Ryan.
Who despises a day of small things? Today it's 300, tomorrow it'll be 3 billion.
Exactly, right. The difference that a day makes. If you guys want to get in contact with me, you probably already know how, but I've got my Facebook page, Dave Petrello, my Instagram page, Dave Petrello12. I've got my email on my YouTube channel. If you guys are watching this, you're already on my YouTube channel. So any of those are great ways to get in contact with me. I have a full list of services, of course. I do full tropical astrology. I do spiritual guidance. I do principles of Eastern medicine and fasting. If I can help any of you guys with that, send me a message, let me know. I've also got my Patreon channel I started recently. It's under Dave Petrella and Patreon. And I have my PayPal account. Any donations I really appreciate from you guys. I can't, do the shows without you, so I really appreciate it. And again, Ryan, thanks for joining me. And we'll keep you guys up to date in terms of the progress. And I just really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me, bud.
Thanks, guys. And we'll see you next time.